Casual Magic has been brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL to get 5% off of your sale. And then also by Coalesce Apparel, where you can get really cool t-shirts and stuff, and use the code CASUALMAGIC to get 10% off your sale. And by Archidect, a deck hosting website that doesn't really sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them. And now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., Archidect, and Coalesce Apparel and Design. You should go to those places, use my code that I stuck in the beginning of the thingy, and tell them I sent you. You can also get my t-shirt and all of the other cool stuff that's out there. Today I have a very special guest, the Egoraptor himself. Arin, I don't even know your last name because I've only known you as Egoraptor for like a decade or something.
Wow.
Arin something or other, who is one of the GameGrumps, who's as of late been rediscovering his love of Magic on stream with all of my friends. And I'm like, well, if this dude plays Magic, I should really have him on my show. Hi, friend. So nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you too, man. Thanks for having me. My last
Absolutely.
name is Terwilliger. No, I'm just kidding.
Terwilliger
It's Hanson.
of the New Hampshire Terwilligers.
Oh, was that a thing?
I'm sure it was.
I just knew
it
a
is
guy
now.
in school whose name was Terwilliger, and I always thought it was a funny name.
It is a funny name. Where would you even get that from? I'm like, I don't know. Europe has some weird names sometimes, and like, but we're, dude. You found like one of my info dump triggers, which is I'm going to now tell you everything you need to know about language in Europe and surnames, and that's really not a good way to start a Magic show. So instead, uh, hey man, I've been watching your animations on like YouTube since the dawn of YouTube.
Oh,
So
no
it's
way.
really cool to have you on here, and I'm a big fan. Well, I was like a decade ago, so I had totally forgotten about you, and then like you started showing up everywhere again. I'm like, oh crap, it's the same dude, and that was really cool. So it's fun to touch base with something from like the dawn of my internet era.
Yeah, there's definitely like like genres of like my audience, and you're part of the one that like was like, yeah, the cartoons, and then like I stopped making cartoons, and you were like, well, guess that guy's gone, and then
The internet was young and fickle. We didn't know any better. It
yeah.
was, I mean, look, Newgrounds was like a site that I spent a lot of time on when I was in college, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah, man.
So, yeah, like I was a big fan for like Flash Crap, so I used to watch all of that stuff. Um, and then like I saw your name the other day because I was watching Bee and Puppy Cat of all random
Oh
shows,
yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, this dude did a voice on that? Whoa, he's still alive! That's so neat." Um,
Yeah, that was a great I love that project, man, and, just everybody that I worked with on that project was amazing, and Nat is just, like, so talented and so funny.
yeah,
That was just a dream to work and it was, like, 5 years ago.
was it really? Because like it just
Yeah.
showed up on Netflix like 2 weeks ago, and so
Yeah,
I'm like discovering this now.
it was in, like, it wasn't even in production hell, it was in, like, distribution hell.
Mm,
It was finished for, like, years. I don't I'm pretty yeah, that's public knowledge. Uh, so it was just kinda like, "Oh, when's this gonna be out?" Like, when am I gonna be able to be like, "Hey, I'm Wesley, this is great."
yeah,
Uh, so now is the time, and it's very exciting, but now it's like I listen back to it, and I'm like, "Oh, man, I coulda done so much better." Like,
well,
5
yeah,
years of improvement.
right. Like it can't. I mean, the Kickstarter for that was 2014 or something, so it's not even 5. It's like 8 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was wild.
geez. And every time you look back at your old work, you're like, "Oh God, what was I doing? What was I thinking?"
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, like, "Ooh, yep, I did think that was the right move, didn't I? Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay, and,
and you know,
lesson learned."
I mean, it's weird because like we'll talk about Magic. I promise. That's the whole point of the show. But like I've been on the internet since 1993 or two. Like I used to be on old BBSs. Like I got my first like 28 baud modem or whatever way back when you had to dial into like Kazakhstan to get anywhere on a BBS. And like seeing the different eras of the internet kind of come and go, and seeing how people have changed. because like I was in the video games industry and I worked on the press and I worked in like all of these things. So I've seen the different eras of like social media and of
Mm,
how we all react to content and how
yeah,
the concept of content. And you've been doing this for pretty much as long as like let's say YouTube has even been around or even before that. And so you've probably seen like just entire waves of generations of fans come and go, or like the way that things that were cool before are no longer cool and are
yeah.
suddenly very embarrassing. And so how have you managed to weather that and actually stay relevant and active? Because like it's you've been around for a long time, and that is very, very hard in the internet to like not just fade out, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like a bit of an anomaly because we don't, we started Game Grumps like 10 years ago. So yeah, this was the 10-year anniversary this year. So w- it's kind of an antiquated show when you compare it to like what's big nowadays. Like you don't see a whole lot of like traditional non-edited let's players like breaking out into the industry now. Like it's sort of like it's the old guys or nothing.
Right.
Now it's all streamers and they post like highlight reels and stuff on YouTube, which is that's great.
Mhm.
And but it's not what we do, and we're like super fortunate that like our fans are pretty loyal, and they still want to watch us doing what we're doing, and we haven't really like slowed down at all,
Mm.
which has been such a blessing. Um, and we started a new show where it was like on camera, and it was kind of like a Good Mythical Morning, like Rhett and Link sort of show. That was kind of taken off there. So I I wish I could tell you like, oh man, we reinvented ourselves and stuff, but it's like no, we just kind of did what we did for 10 years and it somehow worked out in our favor, and like who knows how much and and we never ever had like, I swear every year we're like, oh man, we got 2 more years of this, like, and then
At
it's
some
down the
point, you're gonna be
tubes.
too old to be able to keep up with the Twitch kids, and it's just
Yeah.
like, actually, I feel like I've done the listeners a disservice. Could you tell the people maybe who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, my name's Aaron. I host mostly I host a show called Game Grumps with my friend and comedy partner Dan, and we just play video games and talk over it. It's a very like old school style let's
Yeah.
play. It's not edited; it's straight ahead. So I've been told by a lot of people that guested on our show that that is some kind of super strength at this point because everything's like edited down and cut down now.
Oh, yeah.
But we just, I don't know, we just got used to just always being on for 30 minutes every episode. So uh somehow, and it's like every episode's not going to bang or whatever, but
Yeah.
like
But, I mean,
it
luckily, there's always new games coming out. There's always something new to talk about.
mhm. But I've done as you said before. I was known for animations a long time ago. About a decade ago, I did a lot of short parodies of video games called the Awesome series, Metal Gear Awesome, wow, Halo, what the Awesome Reach. I forgot what it was called. And I also did a comedy band called Starbomb with my comedy partner Dan and his music partner Brian, because he has a band called Ninja Sex Party. So
As you
we
do.
yeah. Yeah, it's typical. So we collaborated and we made video game parodies, and we released 3 albums, and
Oh, damn.
it did pretty well for us, and we were able to go on tour and perform it in front of people, and it was
That's
awesome.
wild.
Yeah, yeah. I can't believe some of the things that we get to do sometimes. Like I sort of step outside of my body, and I'm like, this is my career. This is very strange.
That's why I mean, because the thing I can compare you to, at least because I'm an old person, your show reminds me a lot of, like, Game Center CX or, like
Wow. Yes.
I mean, mind you, Game Center TX is like the Let's Play of I mean, I'm a big fan of Arena, so I love that kind of I've always just enjoyed watching people play games. That's why I mean, when I worked at One Up, we we started doing a lot of that sort of thing early on with like experiments in video before a lot of other video game like
Yeah.
websites and stuff were doing that. And now seeing it just be so big and popular, now that I'm too old to actually do any of that, is both uh gratifying and really frustrating because I was like, "I could have been there, damn it."
Yeah, yeah, I know exactly what you mean too.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you're, like, the first person ever that's been like, "Hey, Game Center CX," 'cause I've always wanted to do, like, a Game Center CX, but it's, like, so close to what we're
Mm.
already doing that I was like, "Oh, maybe, maybe it wouldn't hit so well because it's just kinda, like, very similar." But I love that show, man.
It's so good. It's
Like,
so good.
the narrative that they build, and he's, like, so committed, and, like, he when he goes to the whiteboard and he starts, like, explaining, like, what he's dealing with and
And
stuff,
he's
it's
got
so
the
good.
the slap on his forehead with the cooling pad, and
Mhm.
I got to meet Arino once when he came to America to do Game Center TX Goes to America. He came to San Francisco, and I got to go and take a picture with him, and I'm this Indian dude, I run into him, and I speak fluent Japanese, and him and his producers are just, like, losing their mind. They're like, "What the hell? We met a random dude in America who speaks Japanese and knows who we are. This is weird." And I'm like, "Please sign my game." And, it was sweet.
That's
Uh,
awesome. You speak fluent Japanese? That's
well, I
dope.
lived there for 2 years. I mean, I lived there for a year, and I took a lot of it in, college, and I'm a gamer. Like, I speak, like,
Yeah.
12 languages, and Japanese is just the most recent.
You
Um,
speak 12 languages?
Look, I had a childhood where I had a lot of time.
That's incredible.
I mean, I spoke 4 before I got to elementary school because of just the way my family is. I was born in America. English was my 4th language, right? Like, so I don't know what
Wow.
to tell you. Um,
That's not even like when you go to Europe or whatever, when all the countries are so close to each other, it's like, it's normal to know like 3 languages.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like, think about it. Both my parents knew like 6 languages each or something when they left India, just because the neighboring states, each state in India has its own language. Then there's
Yeah.
Hindi, which is the language, and then there's like, oh yeah, of course I can understand Punjabi. It's close to the one I know. Whatever, whatever.
Mhm.
Like they're all so similar and fuzzy that you can understand and fake it. And when you come to America and there's no state designation, we're all just Indians. We all have to learn each other's language to talk to grandma. So and, like, my best friend was Korean, so his grandmother would teach us Korean when we were, like, 3 or 4, and so we'd be learning, Korean in our infancy, and I had no English at home until I went to school, and then I went to school and I'm like, "Oh, this, okay, whatevs." And then, like, "Oh, I learned Spanish because 'cause we're in California, Spanish is easy to learn." And, I went to school in Massachusetts for a few years, and they taught me Spanish, French, and Latin in 5th grade.
Oof, my gosh.
Why? I don't know, but it helped. And then, once you know, Hindi and, like, Spanish, basically, you've got, like, 2/3 of the languages of the world you can basically figure out. And
Wow.
then, like, when I moved to Japan, like, Japanese, like, for instance, the word for, self in Japanese is jibun, and the word for, like, being or self or, like, my life in Hindi is jivan. And I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever. If I know all the so I'm a Hindu priest, so as
Mm.
long as I know liturgical language, it was easy for me to learn the liturgical language translations into Japanese, and from there kind of learn vocabulary. The grammar is super weird, but I'm good at grammar. So, and now you know who I am.
Yeah, that is so remarkable. I mean, I'm, like, so envious of that. Like, I wish that I could travel and just be like, "I'm here and I can speak the language and I'm, like, and everybody thinks I'm cool." Like, I wish I had that and wasn't just like,
Look, man,
taxi?"
it's really hard though, because like I remember I was in I was in Malaysia and I was trying to catch a cab and I could only remember the Japanese word, but it was only coming out with like, Hindi grammar. And I'm like, this is not right. This is not working. Or like when I'm in like I was in Mexico like for spring break because I took my son there and I speak Spanish pretty well. My brother is fluent in it, but I'm good enough to get by. But when I was running out of like Spanish words, I would be reaching for the Japanese vocabulary word, and that's not useful when you're
Wow.
trying to talk to Spanish people. It's like this is not going to get me what I want, and
Yeah, I
it sounds
wasn't thinking
stupid.
about how it would get, like, mixed up like that. Like
It's
like, "Wow, what was the word in that language?"
Look,
Oh, man.
if I spend like 3 months somewhere, and like when I was a kid, we used to spend like large tense stretches of time in India or whatever. And when I would come back, I would have the worst time of the world trying to talk to anybody about anything because God knows what language is coming out of my mouth. Uh,
That's incredible, man. So jealous.
yeah, it's fun. It's fun sometimes. But now I'm old, so I'm down to like just 4, 4 or 5, whatever. Yeah, but it's so neat, and especially like you guys have weathered a lot of like seen a lot of the kind of social change that's gone through the internet, especially because I know when I was in press, and I was one of the people who was definitely a second tier target during the Gamergate era. So, and I'm sure you remember 2014. Uh,
Yeah.
Great summer for all of us who were in games. Let me tell you. Um,
Yeah, that was a nightmare.
I learned the names of my police officers. It's not a thing you ever want to do when you're brown.
Wow.
Um, yeah, but how have you managed, or like, I guess, have you cultivated yourself a fan base that you feel comfortable with?
Yeah, our fans are very kind people. I it,
I'm sorry, that's a really weird and rude question, but
no, no,
you know what I'm saying
it's
though.
no, it's actually interesting because there's kind of more to it than that.
Mm,
I've cultivated different audiences over the years because, you know, pre Gamergate and, well, I guess just existentially in America, it's very easy to be a white guy in gaming, right? So I haven't really I haven't really had to deal with any of that sort of thing. But it was happening around me, and it wasn't until like those times, like Gamergate, and when it started becoming more like a conversation where I was like, oh, interesting. Maybe I need to be thinking about this more because, like, growing up in Florida, like I never really thought about that. I didn't think I had to, right?
right,
Um, so that was a great change for me. But pre that time, I was making comedy, and I was making jokes where I wouldn't make them nowadays, right?
right,
And none of them were particularly like, I wasn't making fun of anybody, or like it was just my use of words, or like my
sure,
lax um attitude towards certain topics and stuff. Um so I cultivated a different audience back then, who I think have like kind of been half paying attention to what I'm doing now. And I do think there's sort of a frustration with people who are kind of still those people that I've sort of grown past that. So
yeah,
there can be a weird clash, especially when I interact with people who are still making the kind of content that I used to make, or whatever.
right,
Whether it be like, straight comedy or cartoons or whatever. You can see a lot of those people come out, and they're very vocal about how like I've changed and all that stuff, which is fine. Because I have, and I
yeah.
like the way that I've changed.
It's important to
Um,
change. We should all be changing. That's like what it means to be alive, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
But when it comes to like the Game Grumps audience though that we've cultivated, they're very, very kind.
well,
They're
that's good.
very, very supportive. I really get to see that in person, when we go out and we do tours and stuff. We
Mm.
we hear a lot from the people who work at the venues, especially like security and stuff. They're like, I've never had somebody who's coming to a a concert, and they hold the door for me, like, that's and when they were just a guest, like, your fans are so nice, and they, like, clean up after themselves and stuff, like, it's wild. So we really get to see that firsthand, and we get to see, like, you know like, "Oh, I don't wanna, waste your time by coming up to you and ask for a picture," and stuff like that. Like, they're just very courteous,
They're
they're very
very
polite.
courteous and like polite and just like scared of interaction type of thing. Not scared, but just like hesitant. Like I don't want to invade your space.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah.
we can have a nice relationship.
I
Yeah,
mean, we
because
get
like
we get a lot of fans that don't, like, get out a whole lot, which, like, there's no judgment there. That's just, like,
sure, I know,
because
I
I
know
didn't get out
exactly
a lot when I was younger.
right,
So there is, like, a bit of, like, "Ooh, how do I interact in this the way that I want?" But it's usually, you can sense the sort of, like, what's the word? They're trying to do it in a way that is, like, polite and acceptable, and not, rude.
right. Which is good. That's a kind of fandom you want to cultivate. Like the kind that's just like very gentle and pleasant and also just really appreciative. And I'm not saying you need to appreciate everything we do, but it also feels really good when you meet people do appreciate what you do. And it's also just a better way to live, I think, is like being having gratitude and like,
Yeah. I
just it makes you a happier person.
Yes, I think gratitude is 100 just for everybody on planet Earth, that is
Yeah,
one of the most important virtues to have.
exactly. So I'm going to now pivot away from gratitude into slaughtertude, and because if I wait too long, my editor gets a little itchy about like, hey man, brand. Um, but we're here to talk about Magic: The Gathering, and how long have you been playing?
I started playing, like, I wanna say 2 or 3 months before Eldraine dropped.
Wow, that's hell in you. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah, it's
mean,
pretty recent.
maybe not that. I mean, that's still 3, 4 years ago now.
Yeah, I mean, I had a unique experience where, I was getting into it and I was, like, kinda nervous to, join any groups or go to, like, card shops and, like, kinda be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I literally did it once for a Theros, sealed event, and it was in Portland, and it was awesome, and I was like, "I love this," and then the pandemic hit, and I was like, "Alright, I guess I'm just gonna do this on my own,
Yeah, let me
get
tell
Arena
you.
and weather the storm."
Dude, I started this podcast 2 months before the pandemic hit, and I was like, "Alright, I'm gonna go to all these events this year, I'm gonna meet people, it'll
Mhm.
be great, and I'll have great contacts, we'll be able to do all the," and then it's like, "Oh, well, I guess I won't do that."
Yeah. So it's been very interesting to especially because there's so much history, and I try to do everything I can to like respect that when I'm kind of talking about it or whatever, because like it's all new to me, so
Mm,
it's just very exciting. There can be a lot of like cynicism in the space, I think, and
yes.
it's really hard for me to relate to that because I'm just like, oh, but look, it's a cool card, like kind of
I
that's
mean,
that's been my experience this whole time.
the thing is, so I've been playing for, like, 25 years or something stupid like that, and for me, every time I see a new set or a new Magic card, I'm just super excited. I'm like, "Hell yeah, look at this thing. It does something weird. This
Mhm.
is so neat." And people expect me to be far more jaded about this because I've been around for so long. And I'm like, I'm jaded about the timings of the releases, but the cards themselves, I'm always excited and I'm always happy. I remember when I was at One Up and I was doing like I was talking to someone and be like, "Why aren't you guys promoting me or whatever?" And they're like, "Shivam, you're too enthusiastic. You're not cynical enough for the games industry. You're just too happy to be here." And I'm like, "That's the crappiest way to say you're not gonna promote me, buddy, but I
Well,
appreciate the thought."
yeah, I mean, I get it, of course. Like
Yeah.
I grew up as like kind of an angry kid, so I have a lot of cynicism inside me.
Yeah.
But
I
like
came up in this edgy era of gaming.
yeah, exactly. But like it's a game, like
It's
it's
a game.
fun. You get
It's
together and you
fun.
have fun with your friends. Like
And
it's
the
not
cards are
meant
cool
to
and they do weird things. It's
yeah,
exciting.
it's not meant to make you miserable. Like it's meant to be a fun little thing.
Now, mind you, there are decks that are definitely meant to make you
Okay, yeah,
miserable.
fair enough. I mean, that's true. But, like, I kinda like that. Like, I like the different experiences. Obviously, if you're, like, playing it over and over again and, like, your friend comes over and it's like, "Oh, the same deck." Like, "Oh, okay, here we go." But, like, whenever somebody like, if somebody tweets out and they're like, "Would you hate me if I use this as my commander?" I'm like, "No, it'd be hilarious." Like,
Yeah, it's
I'd
like,
love to see
"Alright,
how that game plays out.
I'll play against anything once, just let's give it a shot and see what happens."
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly. I
after
mean
that, I might ask you to play a different deck, but we'll see. Um, what format do you like to play? Or how did you get into the game?
I got into it because we did a we did a brand deal with Wizards
Hmm.
for Arena. They were handing out Arena brand deals left and right. Like
Yes, they
there was the
definitely were.
famous Sun Wong Cho one he did with the
So
cows.
yes, that's still one of my favorite YouTube, like,
Yeah.
clips ever.
Like Matt Pad did one. Like it was just like everybody was getting this brand deal. And so we had the idea of playing Magic in the pool. Um which was hilarious and went over terribly. Uh, but I had to learn to play to do it, and Dan played when he was a kid, so he knew how to,
The
you know,
rough
yeah, he knew the rules and stuff. Um, But so I had to play a bunch of Arena to learn, and then I was just like, I grew up on Pokemon, so I was immediately like, whoa. And then you can, whoa, and you can flash in card. That's wild. You could do stuff on the other player's move. That's amazing. So I just was immediately hooked, and I went to every store and just like got booster boxes and decks and was like, is this one good? I don't know. I was the new player that was like, this gives you 6 life. That's the best card ever.
Whoa! Dude, you know what though? That there's nothing like that feeling of the sheer lack of cynicism, the joy of experiencing these cards and being like, every card is good, every card is cool because I've never seen it before. This is all amazing. Why not? And like I think a lot of people, especially in the Magic internet, just forget that this is fun and that we play this because we love this stuff. Like
Yeah.
it just people are like, "Oh, man, why would I ever play that over, like, this much better card?" And I'm like, "'Cause it's neat.
Yeah.
Why what else do you need? Like, the card is cute. It does
Yeah.
a weird thing. Let's go with that." But
No matter who we are, we have a little Timmy inside of us.
dude, you know what? Every day, like, I started this project, like, 2.5 years ago called Scryfall Random, where every morning I post a random card from
Yes.
Scryfall,
I love
and
those posts.
yeah, and it's just like I mean, I've played for a long time. There's a lot of cards I've never seen before, but every day I'm like, "Look, this card is cool. It does something weird." And every day people like message me saying, "I've never seen that card before.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Thank you so much." And I'm like, "See? There's still things in Magic. A quarter card from 15 years ago that is like total trash has inspired you to do something."
Mhm.
Remember that feeling when you're pissed off about, I don't know, whatever you're pissed off about this time, like, "Oh, no, they printed another Lana World." Yeah, dude, relax. They also print weird things that give you extra upkeeps. Just enjoy it.
I mean, maybe there'll be a point where I've seen so many combinations and stuff where I'm like, okay, that's basically another version of this. But like all the time I'm playing games and I'm like, what does that do? Like I learned um like right before I did that shuffle up and play episode with the
Yeah,
professor, I learned that Green Sun Zenith is ramp spell for
for the,
Dryad. Uh,
Dryad Arbor, yeah.
yeah, and I was like, I didn't know that. Like, why
It's
would
a
I know that? I
why would you have no that is a like, if you haven't been watching pro Magic for, like, 10 years or something, you would have no reason to ever realize that, but, like, the first day you figure that out, you feel so smart.
yeah.
Like, you're like,
Uh,
"Oh my god, can you believe this thing?"
so there's so many like ubiquitous kind of like you've been playing Magic for 25 years, but like I'm just learning that stuff, and every time I learn like a new one, I'm like, whoa, that's a great idea.
It
Like,
it makes me happy. Nothing makes me happier than pulling a deck out and going into a weird combo and having everybody at the table just go like, "What the hell just happened?
yeah,
That's so cool." Like, I love, like, more multi-card, like, 4 or 5 card combos that you're like, "I need to sacrifice this thing, and this comes back to my hand, and these weird things happen, and suddenly I have infinite green mana, and I'm playing blue deck. I don't understand,
hmm
but now it's cool." And they're like, "I don't what? Huh?" It's awesome.
yeah.
It's
I love this stuff that's like that uses all of the zones. That's like my favorite kind of stuff. Like stuff that uses the graveyard and stuff that like puts stuff back in the deck and like I love that stuff. Like it's so much fun. Stuff that exiles and comes back. Like that
well
that kind of stuff feels the most like creative where you're like, "Oh, what can I do with this?"
well, like, I just started this a new deck with this chick, Nira, who just came out in the Baldur's Gate set, and this card, which I did a whole episode about last week, you guys should listen to it, it says when you cast a spell, you can put it on the bottom of your deck. And if you do, reveal cards from the top of your library till you hit a non land, and then you can cast that for free. So the whole point of the deck is take a bunch of one mana instants or whatever, cast it, and then flip over and hope you hit a dragon or something instead. So like, whoops, I just played an opt and now it's an ancient silver dragon. I
Yeah.
guess I'm just gonna have that. And it's delightful. It's like random. It hits all of the weird chaos functions that I love about Magic, and also uh, keeps the thrill alive, which is hard to do after you've been doing something for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. I those funky little things. Like, I remember how gleeful I felt when, I realized with Winota that,
Hmm.
like, because the whole trade-off is like, oh, you attack with humans and then you scry a couple cards and then you put, like, non-humans on or it's the one or the other.
Yeah,
Um,
you attack with humans and then you flip over non-humans or something
yes.
to that effect.
Um, and and I was like, "Oh, that's a trade-off because, like, oh, you have half one creature and half another creature, so, you might hit the." But then making the realization of, like, "Oh, there's, like, sorceries that create
Wait,
humans."
I should do this correctly because the audience will get mad. Winota says when a non-human creature attacks,
Okay,
you
right.
put the top 6 cards of your library and then put a human from them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking, etc.
Yes. So you can just load up your deck with humans and then a bunch of sorceries and instants that create
Yeah.
other types of creatures so that
Mhm.
you're always hitting humans. When I realized that, I was like, "Dude, this game is so cool. That's so
Exactly.
clever."
You put a bunch of random goblins or, like, soldier tokens or whatever crap out, and suddenly, like, ornithopter tokens, and it's like, "Oh," you flip over, and now it's all the best humans in Magic are just coming into play. Huh.
Mhm.
It's gross. It's amazing. I love it.
So gross. I mean, Agent of Treachery, I was
Okay, well, I
I was
don't like
very
Agent of
happy when that
Treachery.
got banned
I
'cause,
hate that stupid
like,
card.
Winota with straight to Agent of Treachery, I was like, "Okay,
That's yeah.
okay, I understand the cynicism now."
Agent of Treachery is such a messed up and irritating card. But,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
people hate, like, getting their cards stolen for some reason, I can't imagine why. But, like, in the olden days, you used to have to use, like, enchantments. If I cast, like, control magic on your thing, you can cast a disenchant and you get your thing back. So it
Mhm.
feels fair, right? Like, "Oh, you still have a chance." Agent of Treachery is like, "No, this is just mine now."
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
it's
it's
so dumb.
cruel.
Uh,
And then what you get, like, a benefit if you have 3 of the opponent's permanents or something.
yeah, you draw cards.
Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous.
It's a
And then you
dumb
can flicker him back and just keep bringing
you
him
sure
out and
can.
stealing stuff. Ah, it's so rude.
I see you too have played Explorer lately.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty rude stuff. That Thassa combo was real bad.
Ugh, that's a I mean, Thassa is gross, Heliod's combo was gross with Heliod and
Mhm.
the machine gunning, I don't know, but I'm playing Cat Oven in Explorer, so I don't have much room to talk.
I
That's
mean,
annoying.
that's the other thing too is, like, I'm like, "Well, why don't I give that a try?" Like, I try not to be too, like, scrubby about things, like, I'm always like, "Nah, I'll play the other decks," but, like, I always try it. I'm always like, "Well, I'll try Cat Oven, we'll see what happens," and then I'm like, "I get why this is good."
Like, look, when I'm playing Commander, I will play silly weirdo decks. When I'm playing one-on-one, I'm just going to get the deck that's going to win the most, and we're gonna do it. Like, because I don't know, the last standard, my favorite deck was a runes deck, where you would just pile on a whole bunch of runes onto your, like, dwarf or whatever, and just hit them for, like, 300, and it felt great. It was awesome. And then now it's like, oh, with all these stupid mono black decks, I'm like, I don't want to play like hand destruction type of things. Invoke whatever despair. Yeah, that's what that card does. It's miserable.
I
Yeah, go ahead.
I felt so cool when I discovered because I love Underworld Dreams. When Underworld Dreams got reprinted, which I didn't know was a reprint, I was like, "This
From
new
Legends,
card is
maybe.
awesome." Um, I was like, "I love this. I love punishing people for drawing cards. That's hilarious. I want this in every deck." And it's so hard to cast because it's 3 black,
Yeah.
but when they printed Peer into the
Shieldred.
Abyss, I was like, "Oh my god, this is awesome." You could just put down Underworld Dreams and then cast Peer into the Abyss on them, and they immediately die. That is so funny. So I built a deck completely around that. I was like, "All right, I'm gonna try to get as much black mana as I can out as fast as I can, and then cast
Oh
this
my
combo."
god.
And, I was playing that in Standard for a while and, like, legitimately winning games, and I was like, "This is so."
Yeah, and I'm sure they're sitting there going like, "What the hell do you mean you put Underworld Dreams
Yes,
and then Peer into the Abyss?"
because they don't
Peer into
they
the
don't
Abyss
know
costs
what's
7.
yeah, they don't know what's going on. They're like, "Why does he keep playing all these simulacrums and, uh,
Yeah.
Underworld Dreams? Like, he's not doing anything. This is so boring." And then suddenly I just killed him instantly.
Well, yeah, because first off, Peer into the Abyss says target player draws a card equal to half their they draw half their library and lose half their life. So
Mhm.
already you nug them, and then Underworld Dreams just finishes the job.
Yeah.
And at that point, they feel really stupid, and you're like, aha, you
It's
could
one of
have
those
killed
it's one
me.
of those decks where they will watch. They will not concede. They
Yeah, because
they'll
they need to know what kind of crazy garbage
yeah.
is this.
They'll see it cast and then they'll like take a second and they're like,
Oh.
"Oh," and then they just watch it tick down like every time. They never just like, "I'm out." They're like, "This is great. I'm watching this."
You know what? Sometimes you just have to give it to them. You have to just ride it out. Say, "You have just done something incredibly novel. I will let you
Oh,
have
dude,
this."
100%. When somebody like gets into that loop where they're creating like 700 tokens, I'm like, "All right, let's see where this goes."
F6, baby, show me what you got. Let's go.
Yep.
Let's ride the merry-go-round. I love that though, because I think, like, I mean, that's part of why I gravitated to Commander so much. Because Commander is full of these people who build these weird, unique decks that have combinations of cards that are not meant to work together, that
Mhm.
were printed like 20 years apart from each other. But when you put them down side by side, bananas things happen. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what, man? I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch you because you have just popped off in a way I've never experienced before, and I
Yes.
need to know.
Yeah. I the one thing I won't do in Commander, I only have one deck that does this. I will not go infinite in Commander. I
Mm.
don't like doing it. I like winning. I don't like, and now I win. I like being like, okay, I got to really figure this out. Like, I want to do this thing, and I got to do this thing, and okay, I'm going to do this, and then all right, I'm going to swing in for this. You know, I like doing the math. I like doing the mind games and stuff. But when it's just like I play the card and now I win, I'm like, oh man, I find that to be so boring.
I have 1 or 2 decks, which are my, like, highest power decks that have infinites in them, mainly because there's a point where the game has to end, and
Yes.
it's like, I won't play an infinite before, like, turn 8 or something, because I just don't feel that I feel like I want you to do the thing. I wanna see what your deck is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
When my friend and I we used to run, like, commander leagues and stuff, we would be like, "For the first hour of the game, you can't do any infinites," right? Like, you gotta just play. And then if we're getting close to it and the game's about to end, okay, fine, go pop off. But, I think, like, I hate it when somebody just pops off on, like, turn 4. That just
Yeah.
bothers me a lot. I'm like, "Look, man, if the game ends faster than it takes me to shuffle, then that's not fun."
Yeah. When it's like, you know, like literally turn one demonic tutor, turn two idyllic tutor, turn three, then they played their combo. It's like, all right.
Nice,
Did we even
nice.
like play a game? I don't know. Just playing
I
Pokemon
don't
over
play with
there.
tutors. Like, the whole point of having a 100 card singleton for me is it's singleton. That means if I get it, that was luck. It's not
Hmm.
like, tutors take away the singletonness for me,
Yeah.
which is like, look, a tutor is just the second copy of whatever your best card is, and that's gonna just be better because you have 2 copies and I only have 1. But that's I'm playing this because I wanna see weird stuff happen.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I wanna see what's on your deck and my deck. I don't want to win just because I got piece A in my hand and I tutor for piece B and we win. Like,
Yeah. I'm all about the weird stuff right now.
yeah.
But the things that I find weird are probably not weird to anyone else because I'm still so new.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So I'm like, ooh, you can exile cards from your graveyard to cast spell. That's wild. Like I'm like, that's so new, man.
Holy
But that's
crap,
like
you can delve. That's amazing.
yeah. So I mean, it took me like uh gosh. When I first saw Treasure Cruise, it took me like a year before I was like, wait a second. That's just ancestral recall.
It sure is. When Cons was out and we were all looking at Treasure Cruise for the first time and we're like, "That costs 8." And then the second thought was like, "Holy crap, that cost 1
Yeah.
and I just ancestral recalled and it's gross."
Yeah.
Like, that and Dig Through Time were just, like, bananas.
So my weirdest build right now was I built this Lord of Tressorhorn deck. And
We
he
call him
is
good buddy. You know why?
why? Oh, because 10-4.
Exactly.
Yeah, wow. I should start calling him that.
Yeah,
Um,
he's your good buddy, man. He's like he was one of the first generation commanders. Like,
oh no shit.
Scott
Oh,
Larrabee,
sorry.
one of the guys don't worry about it. Scott Larrabee, one of the guys on the rules committee, that was the card that introduced him to Commander, like, in 2004 or something.
Wow.
But yeah, so what do you got, man? Show me your Tresor horn because that's a hard card to build around.
Oh, no, it's terrible. It's all dies, triggers, creatures, because it's just like you gotta have a ton of creatures out because if they keep blowing up Tressorhorn. But I mean, it's all about like the speed. He's a 4 drop and he's a 10, so you just want to bring him out. And the one thing I really like about him
Mm,
is one of the drawbacks on his casting cost is somebody else has to draw 2 cards.
yes.
So every time I cast him, I'm like, "What are you guys gonna do for me?" You got 2 free cards right now. What do we got here? So I'm always like, "All right, you don't attack me for the next 6 turns. You don't, like." um so it's nice to play politics with him.
Oh
And
yeah.
then he's just like nobody considers you a threat because he's such a weird,
He's
dumb
a weird.
creature.
He's just
Um
a very top heavy dude who
yeah,
lives his
and
life.
then there's this amazing win con in that deck that is Chandra's Ignition with anything that gives him infect. Um, like right out the gate, like because he's just a 4 drop and he's 10 power. So you just throw him down, if you're lucky turn 2, but like, well, I guess you have to have some creatures out, but like turn 3 you throw him out and then you're just like, interesting. Well, now he's got infect and he's an instant kill. So how about that? Isn't that strange? And then people are like, "Oh, we gotta deal with this guy."
That card, I mean, Chandra's in fact, her Chandra's ignition is such a beating because you never see it coming, and when it does, you're just like, oh, that that did not feel good, and now
Hmm.
I'm dead.
I will mention. I haven't mentioned this yet. That is my unsleeved deck. That is the deck that I carry around with a rubber band.
That is the way
Um,
God intended,
yes, exactly. I
unsleeved and in the
love
Ziploc.
the riffle shuffle. It's just such a like. I'm really playing Magic now. Like, yeah.
Throw down on the sidewalk, baby, the way we did back in the day.
Yep. Like when I see, because there's a couple. I have a couple of those like double masters full arts in there. And when I see them start to get like wrecked, I'm like, yes, this
Yes.
is exactly as intended. This is beautiful. I love this.
Dude, people just get so touchy about these cards, and I'm like, "Look, man, the card only has value if I'm ever gonna sell it. I don't sell cards, so just let me play with them how I want to."
Hmm.
And they're
No,
like, "But you could sell it to me." I'm like, "No, I just wanna beat the crap out of this card. That's just how we're doing it."
I'm absolutely like 50% of both minds. I am like, these are game pieces. They should be affordable. You should beat them up. You should like they're meant to be played with. They're meant to be used. If I saw a kid with a first edition Charizard and he was playing it unsleeved, I'd be like, exactly.
Right.
Perfect. This is how it's supposed to be. And also I sleeve everything. I have them perfectly organized. If I like drop, no, I don't. Ooh, that one's so valuable, and I never sell them.
Look, man, I mean, yes, I have a binder with double sleeved cards in it. I've got all of my like boxes and stuff of like very carefully curated cards. And then my desk is also just covered in random piles of just like
Hmm.
rares and stuff that I just don't care about. And sometimes my son runs over them in the chair and that just happens. It's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly.
Um,
I really got my my priorities checked when I have a collection of every booster pack ever made. And
what?
I
Really?
hadn't yeah, it's wild. If you ever are in the area, I'll show it to you. It's pretty cool. It took
Yes, like I love booster packs more than basically anything. Okay, you can't just drop that and move on. How do you have a collection of every booster ever made? Did
I
you just
just I just travel a lot. So I go to a lot of like local stores that, like this store over here will have like a couple Odyssey. This store over here will have a couple Scourge, like it adds up as I'm because I go on tour all the time. So
sure?
every city I'm in, I hit at least one LGS, if not like three. So I'm constantly like, ooh, that's a pretty nice price for that. That's a pretty good price for that. So, um, it added up, and then, then I chased the whales pretty hard and found some reasonable prices on a lot of the really early stuff, and then I was like, oh, this is everything, I guess. I also meticulously had a Google spreadsheet. So
Fair, fair. I'm like, do you have like alpha beta stuff?
yes, I don't have
Whoo!
I don't have summer magic.
Well, I
That's like impossible.
I don't think you're gonna find a sealed packet of summer magic
Yeah,
anytime soon.
and I don't have, alternate 4th edition, which they only came in, the decks. They didn't make booster packs of that, so I don't have
Yeah.
that yet. And then, like, there's all these miscellaneous things, like, I don't have every, like, standard showdown, um, I don't have every, like, welcome booster, like, I have
Mhm.
there's a lot of, like, the weird
There's
ones
a
where I'm
lot
like
of random ancillary like, "Ooh, here is the six-pack booster pack of Innistrad that came out at Target in 2011."
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, I even have the full, like, Android PS3 promo packs from M13 or something, like yeah,
Wha
some store just had them all. They were like, "Oh, here's the on display," and I was like, "I will take them." That's and they weren't even that expensive, like, they're just because they're just little promo packs.
Ye but well, look, man, I I collect boosters. I love opening boosters. I love just having them. And like every year for my birthday, I have a big con where all my friends come up and we play like board games and magic and video games all day long. And one of the things we do is a chaos draft. And when I
Mm,
turned 40, I cracked an Urza Saga package because I was like, it's my 40th, I get to crack a fun one. And the internet was so mad. They're like, it's worth so much more closed. And I'm like, oh, bro, this is a
yeah.
magic pack. It was meant to be opened and
Mhm.
like enjoyed and then put away in a box where I never see it again.
Yeah, that's, I got in on 'cause I have a channel called Shuffle Master where I open up cards, and I started with Magic because I was just, like, huge into Magic, and it was just, like, my phone streaming to YouTube at my desk at home, and, I had started, like, right before the big collectible boom that happened during the pandemic, so I I was opening boxes of, like, it was just like a full box of Innistrad. I ended up getting a full box of Urza Saga and cracked the entire box.
What?
Just, like, on my phone, I was like, "Oh, yeah, it was just pretty pricey," but, like, it wasn't that bad, and now it's like, I'm like, "Oh my god, I can't maybe I should have saved that." Like, it's, like, tripled in price. I'm like, "Oh, geez whiz." Um,
I am stunned.
yeah,
That is bananagrams.
didn't pull a cradle, just so you know.
I have
But
two cradles.
I did pull the drink, that was pretty cool.
Okay, well, that's dude. Opening a box of that vintage is cool, anyways. Like that's
Yeah,
just fun.
well, it's funny because like, every day I appreciate it more, because I learn more about, like, the history of it, and, I when I was doing that, I had never drafted before. So, I was getting a lot of comments that were like, "Dude, you should draft these. What are you doing just cracking them?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I like cracking packs." And, like, I still do,
Yeah,
but now, like, I kinda get it because 'cause I've been drafting a lot more with some local friends, and, I love it. So now whenever I get, like, when I stumble upon, like, an old booster pack, I'm like, "Ooh, yeah, we're gonna chaos draft this. This is great.
hell
I'm gonna
yeah,
put it in
dude.
this pile."
Chaos drafting is the way to go. Before I dragged you off onto this tangent, you were saying something. What was that? Like
I
y-
don't remember.
you were talking about like you're like, yeah, I have every booster pack, and man, I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Oh, yeah, what the hey was I what was I implying with that? Ugh, I don't remember what the thread was.
Oh, alas, somebody in the comments will tell us, I'm sure. Um, Damn, I don't remember at all. I'm completely blank. So I'm going to shift topics, and we will maybe come back to it later.
Yeah.
Um, do you play a lot of Commander?
When I can, I don't if I get games in, it's usually arena. I'm
Hmm.
extremely busy, so I
Well,
don't
I can only imagine.
yeah, I don't get a whole lot of time to, like, sit down with a bunch of friends, but, I have been going to a regular draft group, which has been awesome. So I've been really getting into limited. I super love using commons and uncommons.
Yes.
I super love the idea of, like, every card matters.
Yes.
Even this crappy card that's, like, the last pick, I'm like, "Well, this is a card in my deck and it's useful in some way and I'm going to use it." And, in a lot of cases, it's like, that's the card that saved me in, the
Right.
last round or something. So I love that concept because EDH is super fun, but
Yeah.
it's like, turn one soul ring, mana crypt, like, you just see the same cards over and over again. Um,
Mm.
I love the idea of just like, "What is that?
For
What did you
me,
just do? This gives you +3, +0 vigilance, and then makes me mill 3 cards? Like, what is this card?"
yeah, like, that's the thing. I love limited because, like, it irks me when I see, like, a lot of my fellow Commander players cracking a pack, going straight to the back, and just grabbing the rare or whatever and tossing the rest. Or you see, like, constructed players doing this all the time. I'm like, there are 15 cards in the pack. Let's look at the other 14 too.
Yeah.
And one thing I love about limited is because I love making weird, like, I love playing Dominaria Limited so much because there's all these weird random garbage cards that are never going to be useful in any format except for Dominaria Limited. But
Mhm.
here they're a complete, like, backbreaker, like that stupid Root Walla that has domain and gives you +2/+2 for every land or whatever when it
Oh, yeah.
goes Super Saiyan. It's like, oh, it's so good. Or like, I mean, I love limited because I love playing all trashy cards. I mean, that's kind of what I try to do in Commander too.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm huge on combat tricks.
have you
I
yeah,
think
go
that's such an awesome, like, thing that you can do in Magic,
ahead.
because it's kinda.
Interact.
Yeah, like, interaction and just, like and bluffing, like, I love the idea of, like, why would he swing in with a 1/1 when I have, like, a 3/3 out? Like, that's weird. He probably has a combat trick, and then it's like, "But I don't," like, that's
Aha,
just
you still ate it.
it's such a fun thing to do, like, I love it.
You know, have you ever played Boxing League style Commander?
No, what is
You
that?
might enjoy this. What it is back in the, like, early part of lockdown, Sheldon Menery and Brian Dave Marshall were like, "Hey, you know what we want to do? We want to play Commander. So we're going to take all these random full booster boxes that we have. We're going to crack one booster box, find a legend in it, and then build a deck using only the cards in that box."
Oh, that's so cool.
It
I
is so much
love
fun
that.
because there's no soul rings, there's no arcane signets, there's no,
Yeah.
like, mono vault or mono. It's just, what hot garbage do I have in these 2 or 3 colors that this legend has? And nowadays with, like, every deck, every set having, like, 50 legends in them, it's super easy to find one that you can work with, and that's when you're also using all these trash tier commons and uncommons from the set because you gotta fill out 100 cards. That means you're gonna be going down and using, like, your random, like, "Whoops, this is gonna be a combat trip that gives it +2/+0 and trample," a card you would never play in Commander, but in boxing league is like gonna win you a game, you know?
That is such a blast. I
It is
love
so
that.
much fun. Like we had it set up so that we would basically build, like, crack a box, build a deck, and then every 2 or 3 weeks we would add a booster pack from a random other set, and then
Oh,
you just
yeah.
crack a booster pack, add it in, and you spice it up, and you still have to use trash commons. After about like 4 editions, then it becomes a little too good. But like early on, you're just like, I'm playing random Theros crap. Let's go. And
Yeah, but also, like, that's so it that synergizes with, drafting where, like, the sets are
yeah,
designed to have certain
exactly.
archetypes, like, that's so cool.
Exactly,
I love
because
that.
that's one of the things I hate about Commander, is that a lot of the cool things about Magic set design is that they're built around a mechanic, and that mechanic and all the cards in that set are made to make that mechanic do something sweet. Like right now, Domain in Dominaria, all these things have like extra land types or like give you super buffs for having multiple, like,
Mhm.
lands in play. That's You're not going to build a domain deck in Commander, but if you crack like a Dominaria box, a draft box, and then build a Commander deck out of it, you're going to have the best domain deck anybody's ever seen, and it's going to do stupid cool things. I
Man, that
love it. It's
rules.
such a joy.
That rules.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like it's one of those things where it's like, I realize it's kind of a luxury game. Not everybody has access to boxes, and we've talked about how to do boxing leave for like lighter budgets and stuff too. But I just love sealed formats. I love sealed deck. I love limited, and I love, like, just shrink the card pool down, force me to use weirdo cards that are marginally playable, but are in this format amazing. Like, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that a lot.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about limited format for sure. It's just the use of crappy cards
Right?
that are sort of not crappy.
Yeah, they're, like, fantastic here and now. You might not draft it next time, but this time around, that, like, 5-3 won you the game, right?
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
it's just such a great story. Like, I I
oh,
I
yeah.
have so many, like, memories of the decks that I built and all the limited spaces that I've been in, and it's like, "Oh, man, I remember that janky, stupid deck." Like, that was great when I I tricked him, and then I did this, and then he had that thing out, and he didn't think I had removal, but I did, and
Dude,
it was awesome.
yesterday, like, I won a game of limited where I had 42 cards in my deck and the other player had 40, and I won because we were in a board stall staring at each other, and they milled out before I did. And I was like,
Nice.
"Yeah! Playing in bad limited deck won me a game, I'll take it."
Well, yeah, I mean, that's also the one of the best feelings where when you make a deck and you're like, I'm not gonna win a single game, and then you end up like doing the exact thing that you wanted it to do, and you're like, yes, I can't believe I
Yes!
won that game. That was ridiculously
It's
stupid.
so good, let's go. Oh, man. What's your favorite experience with Magic been so far?
um, I think it's just been like, I mean, I with the pandemic and like my I work so much.
Mm,
It's been tough to justify like just making time for like myself to have some fun. Um and that's been like the because I have all these cards and I'm like, well, I'm not just going to let them sit around, like I have to use them.
right.
Um and so like the excuse of just like I built this deck, I need to go find some people to play it. And so it's been great to just like meet new people and just talk about whatever and have fun and sit down with this group that I've never met before, and by the end of the night I'm like,
We're best
Carl, you
friends
did that
now.
thing. It's just is I love that. That's so much fun.
It's the best, man. Like, one of my friends, he's a touring musician, and, like, after his shows, he'll just, like, meet with random fans or whatever from, like, the Magic community or the metal community or whatever, and just, like, jam a game of Magic to, like, relax, and now he's got friends in, like, every random small town across America and Canada, it's just it's
That's
sweet.
awesome.
It's the best way to do it. Like, you pull out a deck, and it doesn't matter, everybody knows how to do this, let's go.
Yeah, yeah,
It
pretty
feels really
much.
good. Wow.
I will say the amount of formats has been pretty interesting to manage, because like it's like always carry around the EDH deck, no question. But then I'm like, what else do I carry around? Do I carry
Mm,
around the modern deck? That's usually been my go-to. But then there's legacy, and there's vintage, and there's like
no,
what
but
decks do I carry around when I'm just kind of traveling? And
you never are ever going to carry a legacy or vintage deck around if you're just traveling.
well,
Those are like
I'll
that's a
tell you,
bad
I
idea.
I went to a I went to an LGS, and there was a guy, and he was like, "Do you have a legacy deck?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And we jammed some games, and it was awesome.
What's your legacy deck?
I do a Reanimator. That's my main deck.
Nice. I play
Yeah.
elves. Love me
Oh
some just
god.
elves. Pour them out, combo out, and win. Let's go.
Yeah. Turn 3 9/9s or
You
whatever.
know what? It does the job. It
Yeah.
does the job.
Yeah. Elves
Uh,
are wild.
I don't know. I like in two-player games, I definitely love just pouring out a bunch of things and like being like, you can either deal with it or I win. And it just feels really nice. Like, I would never
Yes.
play like that in multiplayer, but in one-on-one, I'll crack your face in, that's fine.
Yes, I love how aggressive 1v1 is, how it's just like, "Here's a problem, solve it," and it's like, "Oh, man." There's no like, "Alright, could you not for a second? Like, I really wanna do this thing, and, like, it's not gonna hurt you very much,"
It's
and
nice to want things.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, man, oh, man. Well, man, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a lovely conversation and a big fan, and I'm really glad that we were able to connect, and I hope that we can jam a game sometime.
Oh, I would love that, dude. If I don't know what if you travel a lot or come down here or anything, but
I've been in your neck of the woods quite a bit recently because I was on uh tabletop jocks and I'm friends with like a lot of people down there.
yeah,
But yeah, we could talk about that offline and like the rest of the internet doesn't need to know where we live.
yeah.
Um but
Yeah, that
that
would be great.
said,
I would love that.
yeah, that said though, um do you maybe where can people find you and your stuff?
I'm at GameGrumps YouTube channel, just youtube.com/GameGrumps, and then at Egoraptor on Twitter. That's my
Cool.
main venues.
Yeah, although I figure you've got a million people on Twitter, so, like, I'm sure people know who you are. That by the way, that must have been totally wild to, like, see, like, 1 M.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, it was pretty strange, but now it's like I don't know. It's the it's that kind of brain, like, even everything in my life I have to quantify, right? I'm
Mm.
like, you know, if I'm working out, I'm like, how much more weight can I lift? You know, if I'm running, I'm like, how much further can I run? Like, it's if I can't quantify it, like it's sort of nebulous to me. So when, when I could see the count like rising, I'm like, okay, I made that tweet and then I did this and it went up that much. That's cool. But then when it hit 1M, I was like, man, I don't. Where am I at? I don't know where I'm at. Like, if
Your
it
metrics went away.
yeah, but it's like, I mean, what does it matter? Like, Twitter, nobody should be on Twitter.
No, it's a bane of my existence, and also like where I get most of my work. What are you gonna do, right? Like
Yeah.
the podcast isn't gonna feed itself,
Oh, I've
but
met so many people through Twitter. It's just like, why does it have to be so soul sucking
right?
to be able to do these things?
It's weird because like my magic Twitter is where I go to run away from my other Twitter, which is mainly religion and politics and activism. And then magic Twitter sometimes gets a little let's say touchy. And then it's like, oh, well, now where do I go?
Yeah.
Back to the hell pit?
Well, it's funny because I don't like I've basically only followed like people who either work at Wizards
Mm.
or are influencers like you. So I I don't see a whole lot of the actual discourse.
Oh, you
I
are
see, I
blessed.
see I see mostly people just being like, "Ah, this discourse, it's so dumb." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that discourse, man. I don't even know what you're talking about,
Sure,
but
of course. Yeah,
I guess people are upset about something."
sure sucks, man.
Like, there was oh, man, it was, like, 2 or 3 months ago, there was, like, some big EDH discourse or something, and I still, to this day, have no idea what it was. Everyone was just like, "Can you people just stop talking about this?" I'm like, "Yeah, man. You should stop talking about it. I have no idea what you're saying."
Yeah, it's you're better off and your life is better off, just stay that way. My
Yeah.
responsibilities on the, commander advisory group mean that I do need to keep my ear to the floor to see what the people want.
Oh,
Sometimes that means that I get to get face first into the discourse.
wow, that's interesting. So
Well, I mean yeah.
yeah, what does that mean? Like, you
So, yeah, I'm one of the people who helps run Commander. Um, so like me and the other members of the Commander Advisory Group and the rules committee, we get together, we sit and talk about what the problems are, what things are going right, and they come to us and say like, what would happen if we banned this card or unbanned that card? Are there rules changes? How can we help better facilitate the community, build a better culture around Commander? And so part of that means that I'm the liaison between the players and the rules. And so like it's my job to sit there and listen and see what right and wrong with the game and how we can better serve the audience and make it so that people are being able to play as many cards as they want to without being ruinous to the experience of everybody else.
wow. So how do you judge, like, because, people who complain are gonna complain, right? Like,
Right.
how do you judge, like, sort of a meme complaint versus, like, a real complaint? Like, it's like everybody always complains about this card, but it's never gonna be banned, right? Like, how do you
Right.
judge that?
Because the fact that I when you played as long as I have, you can look and kind of really get a sense for is this a problem or like does this card have a is there an actual like when someone is angry, you can tell the difference after you like because I was in when I was in the games press, I was also in social media and stuff too. And you can tell the difference between I am mad because I lost, or I'm mad because I'm salty, or I'm mad because this had an actual emotional like negative experience that has, detrimentally affected my game. You can
Right.
tell the difference. You can tell by the tone. Cause like sometimes there's like, man, you guys should ban Cyclonic Rift. And I'm like, no, you're just mad not because Cyclonic Rift, but because the guy who played Rift didn't win right afterwards and wasted your time. That's different than look, every third game I play, I'm running against Golos, and it's just making it so I don't want to play anymore. You know?
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's when you sit there and go like, "Oh, this is" like, for instance, let me use an example. There's a card called Paradox Engine. Did you ever see or hear about this
Yes,
card?
very familiar with that card.
Yeah, so Paradox Engine says whenever a card you cast a spell, untap everything, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
Just so unfair.
Right, and the everybody's like, "Why would you ban this? This card's awesome and fun and everything." I'm like, "It is awesome and fun." But what you're not thinking about is that while you're sitting there twiddling and casting a spell, tapping all your stuff, casting another spell, drawing more cards, and you don't have a victory condition in mind, it's not necessarily the person next to you I'm worried about, but it's the person 2 seats down from you who has now been waiting 45 minutes for their turn to come around.
Yeah.
And they may never get a turn, but they can't just leave because they don't know what you're doing or if the game is over. And, like, that's when you sit there and say, like, "This is detrimentally affecting the people at the table." Not just like, "Oh, man, I'm salty because I lost to that." It's more
Right.
like, "This experience now sucks for everybody." And that's when you sit there and go like, "Okay, well, this card needs to go." Or like,
That's
Iona is the other big example. It's an angel that says, "Pick a color, nobody can cast spells of that color." And, what that did was if you were playing a monocolored deck and somebody Ionas and just names a color that's hitting, like, the table, the other people still have half their decks they can play. You have zip, and you are now at the mercy of the table to say, "Hey guys, can you like maybe get rid of that?" And they're like, "It's fine. I can still play." And you're like, "Well, I can't though." And that is the kind of thing where if that player walks out of the store, they're going to put their deck down and never come back. And
yeah.
that's the sort of thing that we have to pay attention to and understand how to differentiate between that and, man, I'm so pissed that the dude in my table uses fireball to kill me every time. You need to ban fireball. You know, there's a way you can tell the difference.
Yeah, that is interesting. Wow,
Yeah,
what an incredible insight and amount of judgment that you have to use for that.
it's it's a challenge and it's you because it's emotional because Commander is not like it's not a data-driven format, right? It's not a format about like, "Oh, this card is 38% of the metagame, we need to ban it." It's
Right.
more like, what emotion and feel are we trying to evoke from the people playing? What do we want them to
Mhm.
do? Our goal is when you stand up from the table, you feel like your time was well spent and you wanna do it again.
Yeah.
And if you're running into situations where you feel like you wasted your time and you don't wanna come back and play again, that's where the problems are. And it's a challenge, and that's like that means that I have to pay attention to a lot of the so-called discourse, right? Like, because I need to know what is the actual problem here? Is there a problem here? Like
Yeah.
when New Capenna came out and everybody saw that one card was like, "Oh yeah, tap a land, make a treasure. Oh god, you have to ban this right now." It's like, card costs 7, it's in green. You're you're fine. That card's never gonna see play. You'll be fine. And it didn't, and everybody's fine
Yeah.
until the next card that needs to be auto banned comes out, right?
Do you, um oh gosh, what was I gonna say? There was there was a bit of a conversation that I saw about, like, Wizards officially, like, sponsoring the committee, and there was a big, like, "No, that shouldn't be the case."
Mm.
I think you were one of the people that said that.
Yeah, me and Kessler were having that conversation.
Yeah, so what can you explain that to me?
So, Commander is technically a fan made format,
Mhm.
and it's an independent format run independently from Wizards of the Coast. Now, WotC learned that Commander is the most popular way to play Magic, so they've started making products and cards for it,
Right.
and they like, design towards Commander. And their member, like one of the members of the RC, works at Wizards, but not on like R&D, but in like tournament and organized play or whatever.
Mhm.
And one of the things is that we need to maintain a level of independence from them. We need to be able to look at Wizards and say, like, you guys printed a card that is going to suck and ruin Commander. We need to ban it. Like Hull Breacher came out in Commander Legends, we had to ban it within like 3 months because it was completely destroying the game. And we need to have the luxury and ability to go up and stand up to them and say, like, you guys are messing it up. Like, this is not how you do this. And what that does by staying independent from Wizards, it does 2 things. 1, it gives us credibility and it gives us a sense of like, "Look, we're running this format for us, not for your needs or your profit margin.
Right.
We're making this for the purposes of a good gameplay experience."
Yeah.
And it gives Wizards also this kind of buffer that they're like, "Okay, well, now we can go hog wild and make crazy designs because we know that if we mess up, this committee that is independent from us will sit there and like, put a safety net out and save us from ourselves, and it'll allow Wizards to go and have experiments that they couldn't otherwise do. But and then they learn like, oh, this card is bad. This type of card is good. And then we can also sit there and say like, yo, this is not the experience we're looking for out of Commander. Can you please stop making these kinds of cards? Like
Mhm.
Golos was a 5 card, a colorless card that let you get a free land, so it discounted itself for the Commander tax, and then let you play any card off the top. And we're like, dude, if you're gonna have a 5-color identity, you shouldn't have a colorless commander. It should cost you 5. It should have some cost to play, and then it shouldn't be, like, free in 30 different ways, and then it shouldn't just break the game. Maybe let's try not to do that.
Mhm.
Um, but, like and then Wizards can come back or do something like print Lutri, which was that companion, the otter, that was basically it had the, condition of if every card in your deck has a different name or, like, every non-land card in your deck has a different name, you can use as a companion,
Right.
which in red and blue in Commander would basically be like, this is a free auto include to every deck.
Right, right.
And we're like, we banned that literally the moment they announced it. They announced it on stream and then immediately follow it by this card is banned in Commander because of the fact that like during previews before it even came out, because we're like, I don't want some kid going to the LGS on Saturday, picking up a foil beautiful otter to be their new otter commander and know that it's going to be banned on Monday. Right.
Yeah.
Like I would rather just save you the trouble and kill this now and then yell at Watsy for making the otter the card that they knew would be auto banned in Commander.
Yeah.
Right.
Boy, that was so what does that look like when you like, for Lutri, for example, like, what did you all, like, Discord call now, and you're
Yes.
like,
Basically,
"Dude,
what
this is."
happened is like 2 weeks before or like a week before they announced the card and they revealed the companions, they put it out there, and then the RC calls us all into Discord. So there was like, 10 of us in there were 4 of them and then 6 of us in the commander advisory group, or like 6 or 7 of us at the time, something like that. And we all sit there and we're like, okay, now we're gonna have a 3-hour long text discussion where we're essaying to each other about what does this mean? Like, because think about it, companions first off break a few rules. One is it's a 101st card in a 100 card format.
Mhm.
It's a free extra card that's always in your hand. Before they added that weird, like, pay 3 and whatever, change the rules for it. And then it's like, this card is always there. It's always free. Do we ban the whole mechanic for breaking the whole thing? Or do we just ban this one card? Or do we make a new category that says banned in only as companion? Like,
Mhm.
is that extra over? Because remember, every decision we make, we have to filter out to the audience. And if suddenly, like, there's a million people, there's actually like tens of millions of people playing Commander,
Mhm.
and if they're out in like Turkey or in Russia or in like, somebody who goes to a Target once a year to buy a pack and they come home and they're like, oh, I barely know the rules. I can go Google the ban list. Do we really want like 4 layers of ban list for them to figure out how to build a deck? Like,
Right.
what the hell's a companion? Why would it be banned as a companion? Or can we just say, just don't play this card?
Mhm.
And it was a lengthy philosophical discussion because it's like, what are we doing to Commander? Are we going to kill it? Are we going to save it? Does this open the door for people to say, well, you have 100 and worst card. Now I can put a sideboard in, right? Or we can use lesson and learn cards, or we can use all this other crap. Just like, and now like with Unfinity, and you've got attractions. And it's like, is attractions a deck that, or is it like, is it 110 cards now? How does this work? What does this do to the format? And those are the sort of things that we have to sit and actually like really strenuously sit and discuss and try to
Yeah.
figure out like, because people sit there and like, oh, you guys just sit there and say, I lost to this card, ban it. But like, no, what we're trying to do is figure out what is the integrity of the format. How do we make it so that you can seamlessly pick up your commander deck, go to any city anywhere and play commander and know that what you're getting at least at a baseline, right? Like
Yeah.
we all have a shared rules, like we have a shared understanding of what it is. And you're not going to run into any cards that are just going to bone you, right? L-
Mhm.
Like, so that's, and people get super mad about that because they're like, you should just unban everything and let us play whatever we want. It's casual. I'm like, limited resources says that nobody can have more than 5 lands in play total at the table. So if you got a 4-person game and I have 3 lands and you have 2 lands, the other 2 people have 0 lands
Mhm.
forever. That's not a card that's compatible with multiplayer, and that shouldn't be legal. And like, yeah, but that's fine. I'm like, okay, well, Scheherazade says you can play a mini game that you all go underneath and like have a full second game with 4 players. That's going to be another 4 hours a game. It's like, maybe that one shouldn't be there. Okay, well, Sundering Titan, I can just flicker it forever and nuke the entire land base of everyone colorlessly. And they're like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's like I can go down the whole list and it's stupid. But people are just like, no, you're trying to just ruin my fun. And I'm like, look, play whatever you want. Have whatever fun you want. I care about the person who's walking into the LGS with a precon. I don't want them getting shellacked. Right.
Right. That's, I mean, I completely agree with you on that. How how much of the, like, the discussion process is like jamming games? Like, do you like immediately like when a card gets announced, right? Like
Mm.
Hull Breacher gets announced, like, and maybe you like suspect like, ooh, that's gonna be a problem. Do you just like make a proxy right away and you're like, all right, let's jam some games and figure out if this actually is as broken as I think it is?
Mm, some of us do that. Some of us definitely will go out there and like just build a bunch of decks and just start slamming them into each other to just see what the actual impact is. But I have found for me personally, it is more valuable to listen to the people and see
Mm,
what feedback is coming back. Because like people will immediately start talking if Hull Breacher's there. So Hullbreacher came out, and right after that was a card called Riona, which is like, it was this cool Is It commander that let you like wheel, and every time you wheeled, you drew more cards or something. And with Hullbreacher, and like suddenly people are just automatically building these wheel decks with like windfalls and other things. And like, look, it's so much fun, and there's a neat commander. Oh, I'll just put Hullbreacher in, that'll be fine. And suddenly it's just like, oh, this is not fine. This is reaching tables where other people can't interact with it, and it's crushing them. And like for instance, I mean, in the CAG and RC, we have a collective like multiple hundred years of play experience. So we
mhm,
can look at a card and understand innately kind of where it sits in the ecosystem of Magic and
right.
understand what it means to like is this how much is this going to break things for the target audience that we're aiming for, right? And you have to think about like who are the different audiences play. There's CD8s, there's EDH, there's scrub tier casual, there's precons only. What Where does this card fall? And some cards will be like, look, Dockside Extortionist is completely busted at the top tier levels, but if you play it like at fair tier, it's going to give you two or three treasures maybe, and it's fine. It's okay. It's questionable, but it's not like busted. But if people start building their decks and tailoring them to Dockside and start doing crazy things at lower tier levels where they weren't doing before, then it's a problem.
Mhm,
And you can tell because like Flash. Like Flash was a big CDH card, which would let you get Protean Hulk in play and then just auto win on like turn two or turn one even. And it was completely destroying CDH. It was so powerful. Every deck was Flash or desperately trying to deal with Flash and losing. Flash was not seeing any play at the other 90% of the format, only
mm,
at the very top 10%. But it was just on fire and it was completely destructive. And we looked at it and like, you know what? I realize this is going to negatively impact all the people who are just playing it for value, but it is burning down the house of this tier. We should do something about it. And we banned it. And a whole bunch of casuals were like, why would you do that? The cards do nothing crap. And I'm like, and then all the competitive players are like, thank you, Jesus. We are free of this menace. Right. And those are the sort of balancing acts you have to deal with. You have to look and see who's impacted by this card. What does it mean if we ban this card or unban this card?
yeah,
What would happen? Like, we unbanned Painter Servant because he used to be part of a really powerful combo, and then and nowadays nobody plays that combo. And Painter Servant's used for fun, weird little quirky effects, and I'm like, that's exactly where it should be, right? Like it
mm,
should be doing fun, weird things, and not like I mill you out and win the game instantaneously, or I lock you out of the game, or whatever it is. Um, and that's the sort of thing we every time we talk, we reevaluate the ban list. We look at every card and say, like, in light of what has come out, do these cards need to come off or on? And we look at them and say, like, no, this card still sucks. This card
mhm,
still breaks the game for everybody.
yeah. So
And
how do you judge like entire play styles, like stacks, for example? I mean, you're talking about like locking people out of the game. Like that's the whole
right,
point of that play style.
right. That's a very good question, right? Because like we want to be as agnostic as possible because ultimately I'm not here to dictate how you play the game. What I'm here to try to do is make sure that you are sitting at the table that you should be sitting at. Which is to
Mm,
say, if you're playing a stacks deck and you come out and say like, "Yo, guys, I want to play my Grand Arbiter deck, and I'm going to play like turbo stacks and like rule of law type of things," and you're playing against other people who are like, "All right, sweet, I can." I love solving that puzzle. I'm here to work around it. I've got means and ways to destroy that kind of deck. Let's go. Perfect. If you're bringing out your turbo stacks deck against someone who's like, "Well, I brought my elf tribal deck, and he's got his balloon tribal deck, and we're just getting crushed," then something's gone wrong, right?
mhm,
So, this sort of thing happens, but we've gotten a lot better about defining and helping people talk to each other before we play
right.
to stop that tier of pub stomping, right? Because like I don't I don't like stacks, and I don't like hyper controlly decks, and I don't like deeply interactive like counterspell permission decks, but there's a lot of people who do. And those people also deserve to have fun games. If you want to play land destruction, go for it. If your group is super cool with that, go for it. Just I don't want you to play like against somebody who's bringing out their like, I just got my Kamigawa precon and then 2 booster packs and built a deck, and they're just getting slaughtered by your very, very tuned, like, hyper efficient turn 3 combo kill.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I mean, because like there are some playstyles that are not friendly to Commander overall, and we don't want those to become like prevalent, but we're not going to go out of our way to part of it is hoping that social pressure. Like if people don't want to play against your stack deck and they keep saying that, you're not going to bring your stack deck,
Right.
right? Like and that works really well, but some cards you can't social pressure your way out of. And that's what bans are for.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I could ask your ear off.
I mean, I
But
I
it's
would
such a
it
fascinating
normally
position to be
yeah,
in.
normally my outro does not end up being a question and answer about my philosophy of Commander, but I'm here for it. Like, I mean, because like my goal and my brand and my ideal is that I don't care what you're playing. All I care is that you're having fun and that the people you are playing against are also having fun.
Yeah.
I believe very firmly that we are responsible for the enjoyment of everybody at the table. It is not a zero sum game where I am having all the fun because this is a multiplayer game. Multiplayer games are like board game night, they're not like one on one games. One on one game, you and I sit down and fight. We know the goal here is I'm going to crush you, you're going to crush me, no hard feelings, we're good. When we're sitting down for multiplayer, we're dedicating a block of like 1 to 2 hours. We're dedicating time. We're dedicating our afternoon to sit here and play with our friends or people we know or just whatever. And we're here to have a good time. We're here to enjoy ourselves. And the mentality is not I'm here to win. It's I'm here to make sure that the next couple hours, like I could be at a movie, I could be watching TV, I could be playing Minecraft.
Mhm.
Instead, I'm here playing Commander. I want to have as much fun as I can. Win or lose, I still had a good time. My deck still did a thing. I feel like I enjoyed myself. I get up, all the people at the table are cool. I want to come back and play again, or hey, let's shuffle up and jam another game right now. That to me is the ideal state. So everything I do in this format is to try to encourage people to help bring them to a way that they want to encourage each other to have fun. That we want to make sure like look, I'm not saying your last deck of the night where you go cutthroat and just crush each other is bad. That's fine. Everybody's got one. Or if you and your buddies just have like a tally and you guys like to kill each other, rad. You're having a good time. I'm winning too.
Mhm.
My enjoyment comes when you guys are enjoying yourselves. And the most important thing for me is to make sure that you are sitting at a table where everybody else at the table is on the same page as you. That's all. And people have been very touchy about that because they're like, "How dare you dictate how I play?" I'm like, "I don't care how you play. I care who you play against."
Yeah. Well, I find it so fascinating because y'all are basically game designers in a way. I mean, not
Yeah,
like from the ground up, but like
we're sculpting a format.
yeah,
Yeah,
that level of consideration for the player experience is, I mean, that's so much of what I feel like can be lacking in certain forms of game design,
yeah,
that, like this mechanic is going to make people upset, maybe it makes, this part of the game harder or whatever, but like it's just not fun. Like I'm so fascinated by that kind
yeah.
of fine tuning, and that's basically like the heart of what y'all are doing. So,
Right. I mean, the way I look at it is like this: Elden Ring exists, Mario Party exists. You don't want the person who's here to play Mario Party to run into Elden Ring, right?
right.
Like you don't want them to just walk in and suddenly get like ganked by somebody whose shadow thing jumped out behind them or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you just got to make sure that you're sitting at the right table. Like it's like Smash Brothers, right? Like we're here. You can turn Smash Brothers into a competitive scene, and as long as everybody there is there for the competitive scene, rad. But otherwise, if we're just here to sit and play Smash Brothers, and you come and bring out your Captain Falcon strats and just start like wiping the floor with like 7-year-olds, maybe there was a mismatch in communication,
Yeah.
and we could probably do better. about making sure that we're at the right tables, right?
Yeah,
It's like Justin Wong doesn't come out to your Smash night and, like, wreck your face. He sits there and plays against Daigo. Like,
yeah.
it's just make sure that you know who your Daigo is, that's all.
See, now you're making references I know.
Look,
I
dude, I'm a Street Fighter going long, long back.
wow.
I love me some fighting games. Man, thank you so much. This has been a lovely chat,
Yeah,
and
man, I appreciate you, and Matt, a lot of respect for you and what you do. Like
I
seriously.
appreciate it, and, I'm glad you were able to come on. But, to wrap up my my outro, you can find me at Gearboard Gears. You can find this show anywhere podcasts are sold, or at Cool Stuff Inc. on Tuesdays, or at YouTube every Thursday. Thank you, EK. And remember, my friends, it is not magic without the gathering, and we will see you next time.